Yeah. You see, boy, DP, Bobby hit a little like that. Bobby hit a little like that. Bobby hit a little bit. 'Cause I'm working. Hey, welcome to our very first episode of Bible Chat. Are y'all ready out there? You know, we have been excited to do this Bible chat, and we just love to talk about God, and that's what we're gonna talk about, you know. And so before we even get to talking about Romans 1, we would like to give you a brief description of who we are. So my name is Paul Stone Jr. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm an HBCU graduate, went to Alabama A&M, go Bulldogs. And I'm a senior system engineer, and I'm currently working at home. You know, some people gonna hate every now and then, but it's okay. It's not my fault. But you know, we gonna do what it do, and that's the little description of who I am. I'll let my girlfriend introduce herself.
Tried to subtweet me there, huh? Anyways, my name is Kayla Harris, No Jr. I am from California, born and raised in California. I moved to Georgia about 10 years ago.
Dang.
And I've been living out here ever since. I am a pharmacist, so I have not been working from home. I've been working out in the streets.
At the Walgreens. At the Walgreens, not the streets.
Like the real G's do.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, that's me. Since you said keep it brief.
So that's a little description of who we are. So let's go ahead and get to this Bible chat. We want to go ahead and get you to that word. So Romans 1.
Romans 1.
Romans 1. So, you know, we're just talking about Paul.
Yeah. Paul, who was Saul before, but now he is Paul.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good inspiration for, you know, if you've been through a lot of stuff, you know, because, you know, before Paul became Paul, he was Saul.
Mm-hmm.
And he killed a lot of Christians.
Mm-hmm.
So if he could do it, anybody could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And God will use the people that, you know, that you think are like the worst people in life, you know, he will use them for the greater good.
Yeah. So
we can't count them out. So that's pretty much what Paul was. And now he's apostle. Now he wants to come talk to the Romans.
Have you ever wondered how people reacted to him? Like, if he was going around killing Christians before, you ever think they saw him and was like, oh, here he is again.
Oh, goodness, troublemaker.
Not this guy.
Let's get him out of here.
I just wonder how they felt seeing him go from doing that to now talking about, oh, I love the Lord.
Yeah. He should be ashamed of himself. Didn't he used to kill Christians? How dare he be in him? So that's the good thing about Paul. Like, he's a good inspiration where, you know, you could truly change your life around if you let God into your heart. He had to change his whole name.
Mm-hmm.
That's how bad he was, you know what I mean? And that's what Christ would do for you, you know. It would change your name, you know. So I could definitely relate to stuff like that. But you know, this pretty much whole book of Romans is on a letter, right?
Yeah, it's a letter to the people of Rome. So the churches, or church, one church,
yeah.
or churches, I don't know, the people that was there.
Yeah, the Jews and Gentiles. Yeah, so he was astonished about their love for God, and he heard a lot about their faith. You know, if you read Romans 1:8, he talks about first, I thank my God through Jesus Jesus Christ for all of you, because your faith is being reported all over the world. So their faith was being reported all over the world.
Yeah, they must have been doing something like great, or just, you know, out of this world for people everywhere to be like, man, those Christians out in Rome.
I mean, they didn't have social media.
Yeah.
They didn't have no phones. Hey, man, you heard Paul.
Right.
You over there, how you spread music and stuff like that. It wasn't like
Yeah.
How can you spread word? He had been doing really something good.
Yeah, it does make me wonder what they could have been doing for everyone everywhere to know, like, who they were as Christian people, just as how strong they were in their faith. It does make me wonder.
So, however they was able to get him to know about their faith, while he's going all over the place in Spain, Jerusalem, spreading his gospel, doing his own gospel tour, or how we say world tour. He was doing his own tour of spreading the gospel. So he wanted to go and talk to the Romans, and before he could get there, he decided to send them a letter, right? And I don't know how they got the letter. Maybe they used pigeons back then. I don't know how they. It's not no easy email or text.
Mail carriers. Mailmen.
That's a long walk to taking a lot of mail. But so he was able to send them a letter, and pretty much the whole book of Romans is all about the letter. And this is not even close to what he probably did face to face.
Right.
But pretty much he was, not afraid to share the gospel. And I know it could be hard to want to share the gospel, the way sometimes nowadays, because you can't say everything, or sometimes we might pick and choose what we should share and leave out because you don't want people to
be like offended or feel like, oh, this is not for me, so I'm not going to listen to it at all.
Yeah, but God is not trying to offend you in a bad way. He's trying to change your heart. And tough love is great love, even though we don't understand it. Think about how many times your parents was like, don't touch that stove. Don't touch that stove, Bob. And how many times I think I touched it, but pretty much all the time they told me not to. And I learned the hard way. And we can be too sensitive sometimes, when we have to change our lives for, like in that situation, it's like, it's hard, but it's always the easiest way out. So even if it sounds hard, tough, you don't want to hear that, no one likes criticism, it's always the best. I would rather have a friend that tells me that I'm doing wrong than to tell me I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
You're very accountable for me. You make sure, if I'm doing something wrong, you be like, hey, Paul, you shouldn't be doing that. So that's good, having someone that's accountable. So
I feel like, I guess that's kind of what Paul is for all of these churches, like kind of helping to hold them accountable. Because the letter starts off nice, like, ooh, yes. I'm Paul, and I love the Lord, and I've been hearing about y'all, and y'all are doing so great.
Yeah.
Then it just kind of takes a turn. You be taking shots in the book of Romans. Ooh. And I feel like chapter 1 is just kind of an intro into that, especially when he starts to talk about like the God's wrath section.
Oh man.
Yeah, you can tell like, oh, I see. This is not going to be just a happy letter of just pleasant things that we say to each other.
I can just imagine them reading. It's like, oh yeah, he coming. Oh! Just imagine the expression is reading that. Like, oh goodness. So yeah, like she said, God's wrath, man. It's like, when you read this, it's like, man, he showed them love. He showed him his existence so many times.
Yeah, I feel like when you read about that part, his wrath comes from not just the fact that he showed them love, because he did, by how many times he spared them from like being punished to death when they should have been, and he didn't let that happen. But I think also it just shows his power and like just the fact that he exists. Like them being able to cross the Red Sea because he parted the sea so that they could walk on dry land. Them being able to, have manna every morning to eat. The Israelites being able to, when I say them, that's what I'm talking about, the Israelites. When they have, when Moses tapped the rock and water just came out for them to drink. It's just like so many things. And not even that, they built a whole tabernacle where God's presence literally came down to like dwell with them.
Yes, like,
and it was just like, in spite of all of that, they still
didn't listen.
Like they didn't listen. They don't want to acknowledge him as God.
Yes.
They don't want to thank him for anything. They don't want to obey. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. And it talks about that in the book of Romans. Well, in chapter 1, it talks about that's where God's wrath is like coming from. It's just like, I have done all of these things for you.
What more you want me to do?
Exactly. What else do I have to do for you to just be like, yep, that's God.
Like it says,
and that's what it is.
It says like right here, like Romans 1:20. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuses.
No excuse.
For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him. But their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the mortal God for images made to look like mortal humans, beings, and birds, and animals, and reptiles. Therefore God gave them over in their sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity, for the degrading of their bodies and with one another. And it just goes on with a whole bunch of stuff that God is just allowing us to do. And not like he want us to do it, but it's like, hey, you know, if you love me, you would just stop that. We can't blame God for stuff we choose to do. God doesn't tell us to kill each other. God doesn't tell us to go to Capitol Hill and just do stuff like that. We choose to do that stuff ourselves. God gave us plenty of chances. And he clearly says, you have no excuse now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to just let you do what you want to do.
Yeah. I just had like a epiphany, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
In this situation, how it's describing God's wrath,
Mm-hmm.
God's wrath is not doing something crazy, setting the world on fire.
Yes.
That's not God's wrath. God's wrath is simply him no longer intervening anymore. Like, God's wrath is him taking his hand off of us and being like, all right, you do you. And to me, it's just, I don't know, that's just such a crazy thought to me of how much God is like, you never even know like how much he's protecting us from or saving us from, or like how much he's doing to make sure that we have everything that we need, how much he's doing to make sure that we are following through on whatever purpose he has for his life. And his wrath against us for not acknowledging him, not thanking him, is him just being like, all right, you don't know me, fine.
And the thing is, don't think. I guess we don't want to think that he's just gonna like leave us. But that tough love is hope. He's hoping, and that you choose to love me. When you go through those terrible situations and it brings you down to your lowest, he's hoping that moment will bring you to that point. Because most people, you know, you need that moment. You need that tough love, and I mean, sometimes you just need it. And it's not saying God's not gonna show up and help you through that situation. He's still loving us. He's still giving us clues. He's still showing his existence. He's still showing that have been clearly seen. He's still showing you love, you know. And it's a lot of things we do nowadays in this today. We're not gonna get into that. I'm sure we could say that for another day. But I mean, that's God's wrath.
Yeah.
So I just can't wait, you know, when we do our next episode. I just can't wait to see what Paul is going to tell these Jews and Gentiles next week.
Mm-hmm. Because he already coming with them shots.
So, you know, stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe and tell all your friends. And if they want to talk to us about, you know, anything that we missed, or, you know, we all learn together. I don't know everything. Y'all, she don't know everything. You know, we just trying to have a nice casual conversation about that word. So stay tuned for the next episode. Cry Slide.
I'll be here a little like that. I'll be like that. I'll be here a little like that. I'll be like that. I'll be here a little bit 'cause I'm working.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm not ready. I lied.
Welcome.
I lied. I'm not ready.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
The glory of the immortal God, for images made to look like more than human. Being and bird. Okay, let me just do the whole thing over. Like that dude can't read. I'm sorry. I get my tongue got twisted. All right, you ready?
Back to you, Paul.
Hey, welcome to another.
Ain't gonna be no episode. We just gonna have to go straight to chapter 2.
Okay. Okay, you ready?